Hello all, just wanted to give a little unscripted video on my record collection and things that have been happening with it. If you've been following my social media for the past few months, or if you've been following my Metalhead box reviews, you probably know that I've been selling off most of my record collection. At its peak, I had somewhere around the ballpark of 244 LPs, and now I am down to 57. I've always been more of a quality over quantity type of guy, so I know some people, they collect hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of records that they find at yard sales for really cheap, and Salvation Army, places like that where they can get them for 50 cents. Personally, I'd rather have great albums in my collection than a lot of albums. In this case, I was able to sell off a lot of them pretty easily. You know, I've been kind of picky about what albums I want in my collection and what pressings I want over the years and what conditions I want them in. So that's all been pretty helpful in selling them, and selling them quick. So I'm just going to go through a few ways that I went about it, things I did, my reasonings behind it, because it's all been pretty educational. Well, first off, when I started collecting records, I was 14, 15 years old, and it was something fun to do. Vinyl was a big craze that was coming back, and it came back in a big way. I remember getting a Possessed album for Christmas one year and really loving it. Where I used to live, concerts were pretty far away. It took 5 hours to get to Charlotte, took several hours to get to Asheville, took 3 hours to get to Greensboro, and I didn't have a driver's license either. So ever since I moved, I became a lot closer to a lot of these concert halls. Now Charlotte only takes 2 hours for me to get to. Durham, Raleigh, Greensboro, it all takes like an hour and change to get to now. So if I want to see bands, I can go see bands. And ever since I moved and was able to go see concerts, most of my money that went towards possessions started going towards experiences. Now, I hardly even look forward to new albums. Instead, I look forward to what band is coming around and coming to Greensboro. With my hundreds of records, they were sitting around in here, and they were hardly getting listened to. I only listened to them a couple times a year, and the frequency I was buying them was becoming less and less. Ever since August 2017, I have only bought 5 records. I've sold 4 of them since then. So that's a huge difference from what it was in 2016, and it's ironic because when I first started this channel all the way back in 2015, the primary reason I started it was because I wanted to see vinyl reviews of albums I wanted, and they weren't on YouTube, so I bought all the Autopsy albums and I did a review for them. And it ended up being a shoddily made, poorly edited, poorly executed video that I don't like and nobody else should even try watching. And something else, to get optimum vinyl sound quality, you have to sit in one place and sit in front of the speakers. I mean, to me, it's kind of pointless to put on a record and walk around the room. That just kind of defeats the purpose of getting vinyl for good sound quality. I mean, if that's the case, I'd rather just listen on headphones and walk around, and that's generally what I prefer to do anyway. When I listen to music, I prefer to be exercising, walking around, doing things. So most of the time when I listen to music, I have my headphones on, I'm out in the yard, I'm taking walks, I'm driving around, I'm doing everyday things. So the more I started to prefer listening to music this way, and the more I started to prefer listening to bands live instead of buying their albums, the records just started collecting dust. And like I said, I only listen to them a couple times a year when friends were over, or if I hadn't heard Filth Peg in a while, I'll put the vinyl on for it. And I know some people, many friends of mine included, they sit in their rooms and listen to records all day, and good for them. So, I made the executive decision one day to sell some of my records. If I'm not going to play them, may as well sell them to people who will. And for the most part, it's been pretty good. At first, what I thought I was going to do was I was going to go on eBay and I was going to spend a whole day or two taking pictures, writing down descriptions, listing the records, and that's what I was going to do for a whole couple weeks or so. But it's also a pain in the ass because you gotta wait for the internet to load, you have to take a lot of pictures, you have to be real precise with your item descriptions, otherwise people are going to leave negative feedback. And so the thought of doing it was also draining. And on top of it, you know, the eBay fees, they're unbelievable. They take 10% of what you make, and that includes shipping. But I've already been through 2 moves with these records. The first time I moved, I had something like 70 or 80 records, and it was kind of difficult enough, but not terrible. And the second time I moved, I had like 230 records. Do you know how much of a pain in the ass it is to pack all of those up correctly and lift them and carry them around when you're moving? It's aggravating as hell. So next time I move, whenever that might be, I want to just be able to put them in a small crate or something and not have that big heavy load to lift. Most of the time, if I own the album in just one format, I'm okay with just owning it in one format. I don't have to own the same album twice. You know, I already have one copy of every Ministry album there is, so I don't need a vinyl copy of The Land of Rape and Honey. I'm happy with the CD. And let me tell you something, CDs are a lot easier to move around than vinyl, even when you have hundreds of them. So not long after I made this executive decision to sell off most of my records that I was okay with just having on CD, the thought occurred to me, wait a minute, I have thousands and thousands of people looking at my shit all the time on social media and on YouTube. So what if I sell directly to them? Of course, I didn't want to annoy my fan base by constantly pushing records onto them, so I went on my social media pages and I said, hey, would anybody mind if I just put a big list of records I'm selling every once in a while, and if you want them, you buy them directly from me? The overwhelming response from just about everybody was, hell yes! Most of the people who follow my stuff, they're fans of music. A lot of them are vinyl collectors themselves, so in a way this would be helping their collections. That would be awesome. And plus, a lot of them, especially in the international countries, some of them can't find some of these records very easily or very cheaply at all because they just don't have the resources or the labels are too far away and they can't buy them directly. Whatever the case may be, so for some records and for some buyers, buying it from me was actually a little cheaper than buying it from the labels or some store somewhere. So what I did next was I went through my record collection, took out a big notepad, and made a big list of records I wouldn't have minded selling and possibly rebuying on CD or just owning on CD or not even owning at all. And I mapped out some prices that I thought were fair, and for the most part, I got out of most of them exactly what I got in. And if not exactly what I put in, then about 80 to 90% of my money back. And some of the records inflated like crazy. This record that I bought for $5 back in 2015, I was able to sell for 20 bucks. Unbelievable. And then this brand new record that I bought in 2016, I was able to sell for 50 bucks. Holy shit. Some of those records, I never thought they would appreciate like that. And whatever records that I lost a little money on, I made that money back with the inflated records. So that's pretty awesome right there. It all balances out perfectly fine. But see, a lot of these albums I bought on vinyl because they're important to me. And there are plenty of albums where I'm not going to not have them physically in my collection. So as I was selling a lot of these records, I was rebuying them instantly on CD. For instance, I'm not gonna not have the Ramones' entire collection. So as I sold 6 Ramones records, I was able to buy pretty much the whole collection on CD. If I could sell a record and rebuy a CD for a third the price, that's a lot of profit right there. So the way I've been doing it, I posted lists on my social media page, on my walls, on my Instagram stories, on my Instagram feeds, and with my lists, I say, hey, if you're interested in any of these, send me a message and we'll negotiate a price. First come, first serve, must have PayPal. Of course, a lot of people responded, wanting a lot of records. We would come to an agreement. I would send them pictures. I would tell them if there were any flaws, like if there was a seam split, if there were scratches, if there was anything wrong with the records. And if they were cool with all of it, they would buy it from me via PayPal. This worked out amazingly for me because when I started doing it on eBay, and like I said, the eBay fees are unbelievable. You know, they take 10% of your sale, and that includes shipping. And on top of that, PayPal takes a small fee too. And given that eBay owns PayPal, they're double dipping. Well, by selling directly, I've been able to cut out one of the middlemen. Of course, I still got a PayPal fee that I gotta deal with, but a whole $1, come on, I'm not gonna make a big deal over that. PayPal only takes maybe 4 to 5% of the sale, which isn't bad at all in the grand scheme of things. And having avoided all of those eBay fees with all the records I've been able to sell, I've saved hundreds of dollars in fees. Now, if you're doing stuff on eBay, if you're doing it once in a while, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but when you're selling dozens and dozens of records by the month, that really adds up. I mean, that's a couple $100 right there I have saved in fees. That all went into my savings account or went back into buying CDs, whatever the case might be. So that was a great move financially on my part. And as for people who are buying records from me, after a while I started noticing that some of the same people were buying records from me over and over and over. And that was good because a lot of them bought 2, 3, 4 records at a time, and I was able to cut deals with them. I say, hey, well look, if you buy 4 records from me, I'll cut like $5 off the price for everything. And a lot of them acquiesced, and I was able to get rid of records and make a lot of people happy. And some of them, huge fans of the channel, they were like, hey, while I have you, can you please send me an autograph or leave a note or send me a magnet or something? Because like I say, some of these people, they were overseas, international, and they may have not had the chance to like get any of my merch often, so hey, absolutely, I'd love to send some magnets over. And this was all great because I was able to connect with my fan base, I was able to talk about music with a lot of people, I was able to enhance the vinyl collections, I was able to tell them why this pressing was better than that pressing. Albums that may have been hard to find for them were now made somewhat easier and affordable. And also, some of these albums I've had on eBay for 6 to 8 months before I started doing this directly, and they didn't sell. Like I had a Bolt Thrower album on eBay for several months that didn't sell at all, and once I put it on one of my Instagram lists, somebody snatched it right up, so that was great. It's just a matter of expanding the audience. Whether they're buying things from you or they're thinking about buying things from you, they feel appreciated when you just talk to them. If something's out of their price range, or if it's not exactly what they're looking for, or it's a little more damaged than they expected, most of the time they'll still buy it if you just talk to them. Be honest, be open, send pictures, and just tell them what to expect, and they won't be angry. In fact, one thing that I did in some cases was I undergraded some of my records and said that there was more wear than there actually was. And when they got it, they were like, hey, wait a minute, there's hardly any wear at all. And they were surprised by how good the condition was. You know, it's the element of surprise, and people love good surprises like that, you know? I've had 2 separate customers buy things from me, and they were both friends with each other. So after one guy bought some records from me, the other guy hit me up and said, hey, I want this record, and also I'll pay you $2 extra if you include a note to him from me. Tell him to go fuck himself. I have a feeling that that friendship was strengthened by this act. To keep organized, I have a big list of people who've bought records from me, what exactly they bought, and how much they paid me. And judging by these numbers and the amount of people who've bought things from me, it's pretty impressive. I have one guy who's bought records from me over and over again. He lives an hour away. And he said, hey, instead of mailing these to me, why don't we meet up? So we met up in person twice to do a record exchange. So that was pretty awesome. You know, I have several people that have bought 3, 4, 5 records from me at a time, or at separate times. Or they'll say, hey, next time I get paid, I'll buy this record off of you. Awesome. Also, before I started doing these Instagram lists, I was making my own record boxes out of cardboard that I just found in the recycling bin. And nothing really wrong with doing this, but it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of tape. So I was spending a lot of money on tape. And with the amount of records I want to sell, I went ahead and bought a bunch of record mailers off of Amazon. I bought a box of 50, went through them like that, and had to buy another box of 50. I was able to save a shit ton of money on tape. One roll of tape could have done 40, 50 boxes for me. And also they pay for themselves because these mailers, they weigh less than these homemade record boxes that I've been doing. And with that, I've been able to save $1 at a time. That adds up. Not to mention, it looks classier. And it's been an educational experience selling directly to my followers. I haven't gotten ripped off or burned by anybody. I've saved my receipts. I've told everybody I could to pay me via the goods and services feature on PayPal. That way they know they're not getting ripped off. I've sent them pictures ahead of time. I gave them tracking numbers like almost as soon as I mailed them out. And everybody's been pretty happy. A lot of them have even told me, hey, that was the easiest record buy I've done in forever. Because you were honest, you were open, you were upfront, And you surprised me by under-describing some of your records, and they came in better condition than described. When I buy music, CDs, records, whatever it might be, it's a pain in the ass because you get a lot of incompetent sellers that don't remove the albums from the sleeves. You might buy the wrong copy of the wrong album. You might buy the wrong record color variant. You might buy the non-limited edition, whatever it might be. So I was open, honest, and upfront about everything I was getting rid of. It all goes back to people will buy things from you if you just talk to them. You know, the biggest reason there are still people who buy physical media is because they want to feel connected to the music. They can feel really connected with a record because it's big, and it's about 12 inches long by 12 inches, and you gotta flip the sides, you gotta get up to change sides, you gotta clean the record. It's physical waveforms, essentially. And in a case of albums like these Badlands albums right here, they're hard as hell to find. You're not going to find any of these brand new in stores because there's a big long story about why these albums have been blacklisted forever pretty much. But I could download these albums as MP3s over the internet, and I'd like these albums, but I wouldn't be able to appreciate them big time because I don't own them. Since I own all of these albums on CD, I feel like I own a piece of, you know, lost history in a way. The only record I've sold that I was like, ah shit, I probably shouldn't have sold that. It was Skinny Puppy, Mind the Perpetual Intercourse. Dig It on the vinyl is 6 minutes long, and on CD, it's 7 minutes. The song kind of goes on long enough to begin with on vinyl. On CD, it doesn't need to be 7 minutes. The only CD version available that has the vinyl mix is this industrial compilation by Rhino from the 90s. Fortunately, that was an easy problem to solve. Do I think the vinyl bubble has burst? No, not really. I mean, they're still selling by the millions every year, and a lot of people like them, and they're somewhat becoming a household name again. I do think that at some point vinyl sales are going to regress a little bit and then flatline, because I don't think we're going to be able to do away with physical media for quite a long time. Because as I've said before, people want to feel connected to the music. I'd like to thank you for sticking with me for so long, and with that, I am getting near the bottom of the records I want to sell, and I still have a little bit of a list left, so if anybody's interested, hit me up. Grind on.